I wanted to do a film that was about personal issues, domestic issues, sort of what happens in people's lives, but I also wanted to do a genre film. And I wanted to find something that matched these two things, that was bring these two things together. And I had been watching a lot of movies from the 40s, a lot of movies from the 50s, loved Joan Crawford movies, loved Bette Davis movies. These movies where big things happen in people's houses and in their lives in really personal ways, but somehow the dramas were so extreme that they translate to the audiences. The audiences are brought in because of the amount of tension and excitement and sort of the largeness of these events. Melodrama, just age-old melodrama. I found this one book called Five Roundabouts to Heaven by the writer John Bingham, and I'd never heard of Bingham, but I immediately was struck with how modern this book was, how it seemed to have been written today, even though it was written in 1952. It seemed like what people were saying, what they were talking about, the frankness in which they were discussing relationships, as well as the story itself, which was so instantly sort of engaging, suspenseful, was, for me, it kind of combined everything I wanted. It seemed completely modern and yet completely of its time, and that's something that was really exciting. I took the book to McDowell, I started working on it, I wrote a draft. I then worked with Oren Moverman, who's my co-writer, and we really crafted a new film from this old book. It's the story of Harry Allen, who is been married for a long time to his beautiful wife, Pat, and he's fallen in love with another woman, and he decides that to divorce his wife will cause her too much pain, so better to kill her. And then it becomes a suspense film. The question is, does he or does he not? Does she live? Does she not? The story is told by Harry's best friend, the character Richard, who's played by Pierce Brosnan, who is a kind of the consummate bachelor, who's never been married, who's always been a womanizer, who's always lived around the world, is really kind of a character in the old-fashioned sort of, almost like a Cary Grant kind of guy. And he ends up falling in love with the girl who is Kay, played by Rachel McAdams. So you've got two men in love with the same woman, and then you have all this who's going to kill who and who's going to betray who, and it turns out everyone betrays each other and everyone loves each other. It's sort of it's a film to me about what you begin to understand if you look hard enough at the people you live close to. And no one is good and no one is bad, and there's always some level of understanding. And I think one of the things that's most important to me about this film is that Harry, as a character, Chris Cooper, he begins with the least knowledge about the people around him. And I think by the end of the film, he's the person who knows the most. He becomes the wise man. And I think that's sort of the arc of the story. An actor's beauty is their ability to get from word to word. And Chris, it's like this flowing stream of thoughts, words, emotions, eye movement, everything. And it's so, you can't stop, you can't actually pinpoint any one thing happening, but it says so much. And Chris was the first person who was attached to the film. He was the first person we cast in the film. He was committed to the film for many years while we put it together and got the other actors involved. He was Harry to me. I mean, I think he is an actor in, to me, in the mold of an Edward G. Robinson or a John Garfield, or these guys who somehow are able to, the audience can really identify with him. There's a level of identification. But again, he takes that identification and then brings it up a notch and makes it so that you see things that you maybe didn't know about yourself through him. But there's a familiarity with him that's really great. I think Pierce has the craft and the humor and the physicality of actors like Cary Grant. I mean, I think Cary Grant, to me, there's almost like a for Pierce, there's like someone who's like an acrobat. There's a real level of knowledge of how to bring lightness to what he does. He's a great physical comedian, and he's also someone who's willing to have vulnerability, and that's something that's really great for this character. He kind of gives the film its mischievous energy, and I think that's been something that has been fun. there's something going on right underneath the surface all the time. And the emotions are very subtle with Rachel, but extremely precise and extremely, there's a real beauty. I mean, Rachel's just, people think of her physical beauty, which is really obvious, and you know, she's a beautiful woman, but she has a touching quality that as a person, I've also just really feel lucky to know her. She is extremely human, and I think that gives the character of Kay something that's really sort of undefinable. She's everything people have said about her. It's actually, in this case, it's really true, and she's got this quality. She's got a certain kind of star quality that gives energy to everything she's in. The perfect Pat Allen. She is someone who has a delicacy and also hasn't had enough chances to play this kind of role, which is a role which is full of sexuality, full of life, full of passion, and also full of a tenderness that I think gives, because she plays the woman who might be killed, you need to love her. And I do. And the audiences do, and I think they really will in this film. There's something about her which is just so touching. And she also, again, Chris and Patty, one of the things that's been really great is Chris and Patty, who played a married couple in the film, they've known each other and worked with each other for the last 10 or 12 years. They started a movie together, so they have an intimacy that you can see physically. For the first time I had them at a table together. You feel that there's a warmth. And that is important because with the film, you need to feel that there's something that can be lost. And this couple has something